And now I turn it over to my mentor, Amy Eilgard.
Well, Ellen, it's wonderful to see you, even just as a little square. And it's wonderful to be with all of you. I so appreciate the chance to be with you. What a gorgeous thing you have created with Rabbi Wallensfield's leadership, and then all of you co-creating this gem of a community, online, on screen, one of so many beautiful things that have emerged in the darkness of this COVID time. So I so appreciate, wow, and writing your own Psalms. It's just very, very, very beautiful. So I love it. You've made my day already. The topic is chesed, loving kindness. Rabbi Wallensfield and I were on another call together in which I was talking about this, and she said, "Oh, my women would love to hear about this." And it is a topic with which I've had a love affair for a very long time. I would say, as did the rabbis, and of course, the Bible is full of chesed, of loving kindness, as is the book of Psalms. So I don't usually use this text, but I'm just going to share screen for a second here, more text later, but just for a second, I reach for my favorite chesed text in the Psalms, which you'll remember from your study, from Psalm 36, verse 8. Ma yakar chastecha Elohim ufnei adam b'tzel knafecha yechasayun. How precious is your, translator here says, faithful care, your chesed, your loving kindness, O God. Humankind shelters in the shadow of your wings. And this verse is, in some Sidurim, appears along with the bracha for placing the talit over our heads in the morning, at the very beginning of the morning service, to help us imagine that as we wrap the talit around us, we are wrapping ourselves in God's chesed. So I thought, with you, since you guys know so much about the Psalms, I needed to start with a Psalm text. So I've been really working to cultivate kindness in my own life for a very long time. And not because I'm particularly good at it. I mean, really. But maybe because I know its power. I know what it feels like to be offered loving kindness. And I have a sense of how much better relationships are and communities are, and the world is, when many of us are at least trying to pour more kindness into the world. So I've done a number of things in my rabbinic life, and many of them are really very directly related to trying to share kindness with other people. I've done chaplaincy, I've done hospice work, I do spiritual direction. So it's like, I don't know whether I was chasing it or it was chasing me. It's just been something that has been very important for me to hold close throughout my life in a lot of different ways. About I'm having trouble. Almost 30 years ago. In addition to all the ways in which I cultivate this in my Jewish life and my work, I encountered a Buddhist meditation practice, which is generally known as metta, which is the Pali word for loving kindness. And there's nothing really specifically Buddhist about it. It can be translated into Hebrew and translated into, it syncs very well with Jewish text and practice. It basically, what the practice looks like, it's a meditative practice in which you sit and offer, in kind of a meditative practice, and offer 4 phrases which are wishes or blessings or prayers for well-being. First for yourself, and then for people who are very close to you, and then for people that you don't know very well, and then ultimately for the whole world. So there are a lot of different versions of this. The version that I practice with every day, I do this every morning before I daven Shachrit. The words might go something like this. When I start with myself, the Buddhist practice is to start by offering loving kindness to ourselves. It's exactly the same logic as our verse, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself, on the assumption that if you don't have love inside you, you need to cultivate it in order to be able to have more to offer to other people. It's very Buddhist logic and very Jewish logic as well. So starting by offering to oneself, may I be safe, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be at peace. I'm just going to repeat those again so you get the flavor of it. May I be safe, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be at peace. And I might do that for my whole meditation period. I sometimes go to meditation retreats that are a week long. You can go for a month or 3 months or whatever, but I sometimes go for a week, and we'll do just loving kindness wishes toward ourselves for a whole day. And then the next day, we pick out someone who's very dear to us, and we offer those same loving kindness wishes or blessings or prayers to that person. And then on the next day, we sort of pick someone that we really hardly know, someone that we buy coffee from. I don't know if anybody's going to Starbucks these days, but someone that maybe someone who delivers your mail, someone who delivers your groceries, whatever, someone that, whose face but you don't have a personal relationship with. And to offer to that person those same wishes of well-being. And then, and this is a stretch, then on the next day, to pick out someone with whom there's some tension between us. We pick very carefully, not the person who's hurt us the very most in our whole life, but someone with whom there's some tension in life, but just to see, can I offer loving kindness to that person, right, in the safety of my own living room. And then the stretch on the last day is, as the Buddhists say, to all beings, offer loving kindness, to everyone in the room, to everyone in your state, to everyone in the country. God help us. We need kindness for everyone in our country and everyone in our world. So what the practice is about, and this has now been layered over my Jewish practice and kind of laminated with it over these many years, doing this practice over and over again every day, and of course watching with heightened attention for every time, so many times, chesed and its synonyms for loving kindness, for love, and for goodness, mercy, appear in the Siddur and in the Torah and the Tanakh. What emerges from this is a deepened recognition that all of us human beings, even though we're different in many ways, at least we seem to be different, different races, different religions, different ethnicities, different political beliefs, a lot of differences on various markers of identity. And yet all of us as human beings, without exception, live with the same basic needs and the same basic desires. We all live with the fundamental vulnerability of human life, with the knowledge that someday we and everyone we love will eventually die. And on the way to those moments, we and people we love will get sick. We and people we love will get will experience loss. Many of you are in the midst of that process for someone very close to you. So all of us, without exception, including those people who might appear on the surface to be most different from us, just to say, in this liminal period in American history, those people who voted for a candidate that was not our candidate, and we cannot understand how they could have. We are on a very basic fundamental level, praying, wishing, hoping for the same things for our loved ones. My colleague, Rabbi Sam Feinsmith, tells a beautiful story that he was at a meditation retreat with his wife, and they sat, I don't know, I think it was 3 weeks, and they sat in silence for 3 weeks doing this loving kindness practice, among other things. And then on the way home, they needed to take a plane home. And during the flight, at some point they hit very terrible turbulence, like terrifying turbulence. The plane is, rocking. And Sam and his wife reached for each other's hands and held hands. It was really a moment. Sam, as he narrates the story, obviously they came out all right and lived to tell the tale. But Sam describes, thinking, this could be it. We could, my beloved wife and I could die together on this plane. And then at a certain point, his terror shifted to thinking about all the other people on the plane. And maybe because this practice had been really so inscribed in his heart during the period of the meditation retreat, he found himself spontaneously offering these wishes for loving kindness for all the people on the plane, as well as for himself, I suppose. May you be safe. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be at peace. And he noticed, with some pleasure, that he was able to, when things are hard, it's natural for our attention to narrow to our own particular needs. That's just natural, because we need our full attention. But somehow he was able to stretch to really be praying for everyone on the plane. And anyway, they got past the turbulence and they landed, and are still kind of taking in this experience that they had, and they're still sitting on the plane, taxiing on the runway or whatever. And Sam's wife says to him, we're always on the plane. We are, all of us, always on the plane. The specifically Jewish imagery for this is the sukkah, a place of tremendous vulnerability. It's a place of bounty, with all the kind of fruits and vegetables, some of them real, some of them plastic, whatever, but to remind us, in the schach, to remind us of God's abundant goodness and how much beauty there is all around us, and all our needs being fulfilled moment by moment. And at the same time, we're living in this little hut that is extremely vulnerable to wind and rain. We're always in the sukkah, we human beings. One phone call, one doctor's appointment, one diagnostic test, and everything changes. Or maybe it doesn't change, but the veil is lifted and we remember, we're immortal. And all the things that, when things are well, we're able to pay attention to all kinds of other stuff during the course of our days. But at core, we are all just hoping that we and those we love will be safe and well. I feel in times of deep pain, I sense that this awareness arises with particular power. I used to work in hospitals, and maybe you know this from your time of pre-COVID visiting people in hospitals. something about walking into the hospital where whatever I was, worried about the traffic or the, this or the do list or the groceries or whatever, I walk into the door of the hospital and I see that here there are no illusions. Here it's clear that nobody's immortal and nobody is immune. Sometimes in Shiva houses, often in Shiva houses, the hush at the cemetery or the hush in the Shiva home is an expression of everyone's recognition that, all of us are here sooner or later. I remember some years ago when a very dear friend of mine died very young of a sudden catastrophic heart attack. And there was a particular sense of just kindness in the room, not only toward my friend's wife and children who were, just bereaved in the most horrific way, but people toward one another, everyone reaching out toward one another, a sense of, because it was a moment when we all could sense our need, could sense our vulnerability. I often feel this around the Chagim. I don't know how it is in your shul. Now, this year was different, obviously, but even on Zoom, there's something around the Chagim when people wish each other Shana Tova. I feel like it's much more than hello. It's much more than the literal meaning of the words. People reaching out to one another and saying Shana Tova, but it's like beneath the words, between the letters, are those very deep wishes of I hope you'll be well. I hope this year will be good for you. I hope that everyone you love will be able to sustain themselves and maybe even have what they most desire over the course of this year. And I felt something like that at the beginning of the pandemic. As I took my walk around my neighborhood, and I would see other people. And I think at that time, whether we were wearing masks, we weren't wearing masks, but there's something about even people that I didn't know from my, extended neighborhood. There was something about, I felt like just with our faces, with the look in our eyes, we reached out to one another with particular intentionality. Because it was one of those moments when it's like, we're in this together. None of us is immune. We are up against this, crazy, invisible foe that could get us, and we're all doing the best we can to stay safe and hopefully to protect other people as well. And sometimes I feel like that has faded now that we're a little more used to living with the pandemic. Sometimes I ask myself, why can't we live that way all the time? Maybe we wouldn't want to be in a Shiva house all the time. And yet in a way we are, right? So why I'm very drawn to practices that help us remember that, everyone I meet is carrying a burden. Some of them specific to them, and others of them, the burdens that we all share. I want to ask you. I see that you're very active with the chat. If you're willing and moved, if you might want to type into the chat a place where you saw or felt chesed, loving kindness, flowing recently. A moment when you felt that someone reached out to you in kindness, and it's chat length, like a few words, where you felt someone extending kindness to you, or when you felt sort of a rising energy of kindness in yourself that you knew you wanted to reach out to someone else. Beautiful. Our kosher food pantry all week. Oh, bless you. Don't we all, so many people in pain this week. Don't we need to be kind with one another? My friend brought me food that she had made. Yeah. After Sisterhood board meeting, how great. Botanical gardens with my grandmother. Oh, wonderful. During recent illness. Yep. every day on this Zoom. Wow. Bless you all. My son saying he wishes he could be there. Yeah. Noontime, this time. Yeah. Celebrating a loved one's birthday, all of that. Abramson Center. I remember the Abramson Center. My father was there for 2 years before he died. When people are moved by kind and comforting words that I post, it goes both ways, right? You offer kindness to someone else, and then you feel it coming back. Beautiful. I also want to ask you, maybe not so much in the chat. Rabbi brought me soup he had made. Oh, great. These are going on and on. Fantastic. I want to read every single one, but I'm going to turn away. I want to ask you, you can put it in the chat, or maybe this is sort of a journal prompt. If you have a piece of paper next to you, or want to open a sticky note on your computer and write. I was just thinking maybe something to think about later. When does chesed tend to flow most easily for you? And another question, it would be worth sitting for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes with your journal, reflecting on that question. And another question is, how easily do you extend chesed to yourself? Are you able, are you clear that you are as entitled, isn't the right word that I want, deserving, you are as deserving of chesed as anyone else. And I'll ask you to sort of hold those thoughts in mind as we go forward. So all of that said, with all of the beautiful Torah that you have generated just now in the chat, I want to share some favorite texts on Chesed from our sacred texts. So I start here. I'm not going to read this word by word because I have more texts. It's like when I make food for people who are coming to my home, I always make more than they're going to eat. So I also always put more Torah on the handout that we're gonna. It's like I want you to be well nourished. I'm not going to get to everything. Here's this very sort of famous piece from the Rambam, from Maimonides' Mishnah Torah, in which he talks about classical understandings of Gemilut Chasadim. The rabbis formulated this idea of this category of actions based on kindness that we offer to others, and they're very specific, and some of them have brachot associated with them. There's specific mitzvot like bikur cholim, like visiting the sick, like accompanying the dead, like tending to the needs of the bride and the poor, and so on. In Jewish thought, there's certainly a great emphasis on kindness as manifest in action. Like there's a trope out there, the sort of Jew on the street would say, Judaism is all about action. It's not about, don't talk to me about the heart. Judaism is about action. And there's some truth to that. Judaism has a very strong behavioral focus, no question about it. But I think it's really demonstrably not true that Judaism doesn't care about the heart as well. So for sure, action, just like, contemplating my navel and only, giving kindness to myself without thinking about how am I going to bring this out into the world toward other people who need it, would not be a Jewish practice. But it's not all about action either. There's this very famous piece from the Talmud that appeared in Sidur Sim Shalom. I'm not sure that it's still in Sidur Lev Shalem, in which Rabbi Simlai in the Talmud says, paraphrasing, the Torah is a book of loving kindness from start to finish. And he gets specific about it. He says there's a specific act of kindness that God performs for Adam and Eve. This is a kind of wild piece of interpretation when he says God gives clothing to Adam and Eve. That was an act of kindness. That's kind of interesting. It was more complicated than that, as you recall, as to why Adam and Eve needed clothing all of a sudden. But this rabbi says, look, God performed an act of kindness at the very beginning of Genesis, and God performed an act of kindness at the very end of Deuteronomy, when God accompanies Moshe to his death. So there's behavior there, but I feel 100% sure that when Rabbi Simlai said the Torah begins with deeds of loving kindness and ends with deeds of loving kindness, he's saying the Torah is a book of loving kindness from A to Z, right? That's not just about action. It's certainly not just about specific actions that have mitzvah names to them. That is to say, the whole Torah. This is what this book is about, is loving kindness. That's debatable, actually, but this rabbi knew Torah at least as well as we do, and there's some things in there that don't look like they're about loving kindness, but he's saying that's the essence. So moving on just to a couple of more recent texts on loving kindness. I keep playing with this handout because I keep finding more, and no, this one's my favorite. No, this one's my favorite, but I want to share just a few. Rav Shlomo Wolbe, who's a 20th century Musar master, whose work I've just begun to study in the last few years. Here's another Psalms verse from Psalm 89. Olam chesed yibaneh. The world is built of your love. This has been set to music by Rabbi Menachem Creditor. Perhaps some of you know it. Olam chesed yibaneh. The world is built of your love. It actually should be capital Y there. Maybe, you know what? I don't know. Maybe I'm going to leave that ambiguous, because then Rev Wolbe continues, droshing on that verse. He says, every act of chesed that you or I or anyone performs, even a small one, a bowl of soup or a kind and intentional smile, every act of kindness, even a small one, is an actual act of building and creation, right? It says the world is built of your love. So he's taking it literally. There's a connection between loving and building. He says, every time you perform an act of kindness, you are building and creating the world, enlivening the spirit of the downtrodden and the brokenhearted. And I would add just regular people. There's another piece here that I'm not going to read every word. But, many of us bless our children and our grandchildren every Friday night with the words of the priestly blessing. Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha. May God guard you, bless you and protect you. May God, Ya'er Hashem panav elecha v'yichuneka. May the light of God's face illuminate you and ease your way, or give you grace. It's hard to translate, but Ya'er with an aleph, like from the same root as or, light. So God's face radiates. So one of our prayers for our children and for our grandchildren is that the light of God's face will shine on the people that we love. So Rav Wolbe says, we're created in the image of God, right? One of the things that means is if God's face can radiate light, our face can also radiate light. So keep that in mind. When you are, let me take it personally, if I'm sort of walking around my day, in the grocery store or whatever, and I'm all busy, I'm all sort of taciturn, I'm not, paying attention to the people around me, except are they going to breathe on me? I'm just sort of self-absorbed, or even annoyed that the line is going so slowly or whatever. That's what my face is going to communicate. But if I'm walking around that same grocery store, I'm not going to do any great, world-changing thing. I was just buying my groceries. But if I'm walking around that grocery store, taking a second here and there to kind of offer a smile to some of the people that I pass, and especially to people who work so hard, especially these days in the grocery store. I have the choice whether to step into my God-given ability to let my face radiate light. I have that ability, and so do you. One other, we're not going to have time. I'm just going to give you a very, very quick summary of this one from the teachings of Rabbi Nachman, a very famous teaching called Azamra, playing on the teaching in Pirkei Avot. No, a person must judge everyone favorably. Dan, have dan kol adam l'chav zechut. You should judge everyone favorably. Even someone, Rabbi Nachman continues, even someone who is completely wicked, you need to look for something and find some tiny bit of good inside them, some place inside them where they're not wicked. And if you find that place where you can judge them favorably about that little thing, even though they do a lot of other horrible things, it seems to you that they do, or you actually know that they do, but there's that one little place, maybe they're a loving father, or whatever that might be, you can actually change them by recognizing the little bit of good that's in them. And then he says, I'm just skipping here, yeah, they're wicked, but how is it possible that they haven't ever done something good, some mitzvah, some good deed? And in your being able to judge that part of them favorably, you can actually elevate them. You can actually transform them. And the same is even for the wicked. He's talking, even Rishaim, he's talking about, extremely wicked people. And he says the same is true of yourself. You have to practice the same way with yourself. Even when you're feeling sort of down on yourself, go inside and see, like, what good deed have I done recently or in my life? Are there good points? Let me find just one good point inside me, something good that I did. And he says it's so psychologically astute. He says that, your mind may rush in and say, yeah, you did that good thing, but you did it for ulterior motives, or you only did it because other people would praise you, or you only did it because you would get something back. Yeah, he says, tell your mind to, like, shush with all that with all that self criticism, and just bring your attention fully. It's just not true that you've never not done anything beautiful. And then find another good point inside you, and then find another good point. And when you have a bunch of points, you can string those points together like a string of pearls, and that's how melodies are made. This is totally surprising leap at the end of the text. If you can string together all those individual beautiful points of kindness and goodness in yourself and in other people, those become like a necklace of song. This is how melodies are made, and this is how we pray. So I'm going to stop. I've gone on so long that there's not much time for questions or comments, but let me just see if there are a couple. Rabbi Wellensfield, is there anything to capture?
Most of the comments that I've read are you read because it was when you had asked, and a lot of chizuk for both of us. People are thanked you for teaching. One of the last ones from Hetty Bellman. Thank you, Rabbi Ellen, for all you're expressed about Rabbi Amy Eilberg. We're so very proud, Rabbi Amy Eilberg, of both of you and all the graduates. You're the beacons of light for all to see. And I think that, Hetty, that's what you truly bring to light that we need to be beacons of light. There's darkness in our world. I'm not talking about the political scene. I'm talking about our tension of our health issues, that we can try so hard and then, things are not in our own hands. Life is really out of control. So much is out of our control. But I think that, and Rabbi Eilberg, I wish we had more time to speak, but there's a Hebrew class going on shortly, 3 different Hebrew classes at 1 o'clock.
So wonderful.
So, but one thing we can keep in our own control is how we treat ourselves and how we see our own chesed to our own selves. And if you can, Rabbi Eilberg has taught me that for sure. I remember we were at the gazebo in Camp Isabella Friedman when you told me that. Taught me that lesson, and I think it's a lesson for all of us that she shared with us today so beautifully. Thank you.
And I just have to say, Rabbi Wallensfield, it's clear to everyone around you, and I hope it's clear to you, that the fact that you can see the goodness in others so well is an indication of how much light and goodness and love there is in you, and everyone around you feels it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So may we have chesed in our lives every single day, continuing wearing our chesed Torah fun pins, and so that we can be together b'yachad every day. Toda rabah, my friend, my colleague, my mentor, Rabbi Eilberg, and wish you all a Shabbat Shalom as I turn our program over to our international president, Debbie Kainer-Goldich.
Thank you, Rabbi Ellen, and thank you, Rabbi Amy Eilberg. What a wonderful day. And Rabbi Eilberg, I want to thank you so much for being with us, and please come back and teach us again. And Rabbi Ellen, I want to thank you just for being with us every day and who you are. And we couldn't do this without you. We had 98 people, and I know some people are beginning to leave, and I hope you'll stay on for a few minutes because I have some things to announce that are wonderful things. And I love Friday afternoon and being able to announce good things so that we can go into Shabbat with a smile on our face. And when we go to the grocery store on Sunday or Monday, we will smile as Rabbi Eilberg has instructed us. I'm going to remember that, Rabbi. So we have a lot of new people. I want to welcome you if you are on for the first time. I love that you're here with us. Many of you introduced yourselves on chat. Thank you for being there. Again, we want to wish Debbie Green Mazal Tov on the birth of her grandson. We're very excited for you, Debbie. Audrey Mathins shared with us that in a few weeks she's going to be awarded the Shofar Award in her synagogue, and it's for devotion to the synagogue. So Mazal Tov, Audrey, that's wonderful. Also, I have a couple of birthdays to announce, and I hope Mimi's on to help us sing. I can't catch 98 people, but today is Penny Green's birthday. Penny, happy birthday. And Sunday is Faye Levison's birthday. We won't be together on Sunday. So let's sing twice. Let's sing first to Penny and then to Faye. Mimi, you're on.
Thank you. Happy birthday to you.